Historic basics of Japanese tanka. Tanka as opposed to choka. A tanka in Japanese literally means a short poem. As such, it is or was an antithesis to a choka, long poem. Since choka became virtually obsolete after the publication in AD 905 of Kokin Wakashu, the first of a long line of Japanese imperial poetic anthologies, the term tanka, short poem, practically meant nothing. With no other longer poems in existence, what's the use of calling it short? That is why the Japanese people of the Heian era usually use the term waka or Yamato-uta for the 57577 letter syllable verse. Waka or Yamato-uta in contrast to kara-uta. Wa and Yamato both mean Japan or Japanese, in contrast to something foreign. In literary context, a Chinese-style poetry called kara-uta. Ancient Japan looked to China for political, cultural, and even linguistic models. All the official documents of Japanese government were written not in Japanese, but in Kanbun, localized Chinese, rendering the command of Chinese language one of the requisites for official employment in the Japanese court, naturally leading to the superiority of kara-uta, Chinese poetry, to Yamato-uta, Japanese kana poetry. But the tide was turning in favor of Yamato-uta after the abolishment in AD 894 of Kentoshi, Japanese academic envoy to Tang dynasty, which became extinct in 907. Japan gradually ceased to look outside and began to turn its eye on things uniquely Japanese, culminating in the first imperial poetic anthology wholly composed of Yamato-uta, without any kara-uta, in AD 905, in the name of Kokin Wakashu. Thus was begun the golden age of Yamato-uta. Since the term Yamato was innately nationalistic, requiring as its opposite something foreign, with the power of kara-uta gradually dwindling, Yamato-uta gave way to a less nationalistic appellation of waka. This is still a dominant term in the present-day Japan, practically no man on the street using Yamato-uta anymore. Tanka, in literary contrast to haiku. Although the term waka became predominant in Japanese consciousness, the original term of tanka came into use again after the birth of yet another, indeed shorter poetic style of haiku in 17-letter, 575 syllable format towards the end of the 17th century. In today's Japan, the 31-letter 57577 syllabic style poetry is usually called waka, but some people consciously call it tanka, in technical contrast to the 17-letter 575 syllabic style haiku. Since this introduction of mine sometimes includes haiku in 575 format, it is logically reasonable to use the discriminating term tanka for 57577 letter syllable poetry. And the popularity overseas of the term tanka for 57577 English word, not letter, poems, naturally demands that the same term be used herein instead of waka, in spite of the fact that the 31-syllabic Tanka or waka in Japan and the 31-word Tanka abroad are two different things.